Hello everyone, this is recording number 2. Why? Because for the second time in a row I forgot to turn the mic on. Also, it's a hot and hair frizzy kind of day, so take that. Anyways, so what are we here to do? What's this ancient looking website on the screen? Well, I'll tell you. This is my first foray into website making, community building, and all that kind of fun stuff. Even some fan fiction. So, yeah. So, this was, like I said, my first fan site for gaming, where I made the leap from being a player to a community person of some sorts. Not really, but, you get the idea. For Perfect Dark, the spiritual successor to GoldenEye back in the N64 days, console wars. They were good back then. And you'd be like, oh, this is a unique looking site. Like, hey, for GeoCities, this isn't that bad. And if you know what GeoCities are, you're old as fuck, like I am too. Other ancient relics of that time, the overly done banner image with a slogan, of course: we will kill any sim for a price, tips not included. Myself, PDM Grim Reaper, names back in those days too. And even more so, my friends, MDS Pure Death, who's the only other person as good in this game as myself. I'll give him that much. Other relics, best seen in 1028 by 768 and on MSN, when MSN was called that, not Internet Explorer, or Netscape. Again, if you understand what Netscape is, you're old as overly done polls, because that was all the rage back then, as well as a guest book. If you know what a guest book is, see other points 2 and 1. Now, I don't know if this is the final version of the website, because I turned it off on all the pages I'm going to go through. But the only version I have of the website and of the pages actually still function, and I use still function in quotes, is because I had to go I had to go to the web archive to find these things, because when GeoCities was shutting down and had the opportunity to download all these pages, I didn't just have a Perfect Dark website that had a pretty wide variety of pages and deals. Like, I think I had like double the amount of this by the end of it. I also had a this was called Total Perfect Dark, just so you know. That was the name of the website. I had a Total Perfect Dark 0 website for the supposed sequel to the game, as well as a StarCraft website where it was what wikis are now before wikis were cool. And I just, plus all the image files. So I'm like, I didn't know what FTP was back then. I didn't know how to set it up. I just knew GeoCities. So unfortunately I didn't have a chance to download the websites in their whole form and put it in a folder, so I have a total archive of it. So that makes me a little sad, but hey, I'm happy for what I have here, and I can still go through it and still share it with you guys. Now, when I say this was my first foray into website making, this is like a full decade, even before, Dabble Expressions, which was a decade ago already. So this is like going back to 20 years plus almost now. The first, and the reason why I know it, for better or worse, the first news posting I did was 2 days before 9/11. So it's a pretty unique way of, for better or worse, of knowing when I got into community building. So I'm just going to go through some of the pages that still function, and you're just going to see the navigation bar change, and sort of images not load because they've just been dead for so long, and how things change. And I'm going to start with the website, kind of bleed into the game itself, and then final thoughts from there. So the first thing is the fan fiction. Look at this face. My friend and I, we did fan fiction. We did. We really did. But the cool thing about it was, because God knows I have to find a cool reason around this, is we gave ourselves, we could set the law up there, but it was basically just, you know, a couple of rules that we said, okay, this, if we're going to do this, here's rules, here's how we need to do this. And then we went the extra step to, you know, get creative about it, because I didn't want to do it where I was writing all of them and then he was giving me ideas. We actually did like a piggyback method or seesaw, where I would write one and then he would see where the story is going, and then he would interpret it through the next part which he wrote, and then I did the same thing for the part 3, then he did for the part 4, so on and so forth. So the story would actually evolve a lot more, because each one of us was taking every other chapter. Yeah, it's like we wrote a paragraph or two. I think like the longest one is like towards the end, where it's like several paragraphs for one of them. So we can't give each other too much credit. And God, grammar and spelling, any of you, yeah, I'm scrolling so you guys can like pause at one point if you want to read our atrocious fan fiction. But at the end, like, I still have the book. We wrote most of these down, and I just it actually wound up being really cool at the end of the day, because, you know, it's part of our history with the game and ourselves and how we interacted with the game in those days. And we paid homage to our favorite maps for the actual name of the story. So Complexities Part 1, 2 was actually named after the Complex, my favorite map. And then for the second season, we went with Felicity. Noted that it's E, not A, because of copyright reasons. GoldenEye is a mess of copyrights. So when they brought stuff to Perfect Dark, some things had to be changed. So Felicity is actually correct. It just copyright law. It gets everyone. But he liked the facility, but in Perfect Dark it was called Felicity. So he got that name for the second season, and it was just cool. And another notable difference on top of the every other chapter writing was I played the bad guy and he played the good guy, which is not the usual case between us. Not so much personality, but just, you know, what we would come to think of who we would tend to write, you know, to also change it up. So in the end, we actually both liked these and what we did. Again, there's that navigation change. And also another relic of the past. We'll get into the gun designs in a little bit. Another relic of the past is, back in those days, if you had an image link to your website on another website, you were the shit, because that means that person cared enough to put an image file, which took up space and bandwidth when you actually had to care about that stuff on their website. And if they just wanted to link to your website, you know, like just like bat an eye in your direction, they would do an image, a regular text-based link. But if they actually cared about you, or if it was like an affiliate network, oh my god, all these terms from the past, relics, pretty much. You would put an image on your navigation like this, and they would do the same thing on their website, and you were like the hot shit for each other. But this is another page that loaded, and these were just gun designs. And you know, boys playing an FPS are like, ooh, what kind of ideas can we come up for the next game? So the first three are kind of typical. It's like, okay, a pistol, a bigger pistol like a deagle, or a standard issue sniper rifle. But the next page does load, and that has the more interesting gun designs we came up with. Now this one here looks big, but this was an idea that came up. Basically, think like wrist-mounted Gatling guns. Yeah, that's not crazy. Like, think like Wolverine, but just instead of a claws, it's like wrist-mounted Gatling guns, like mini Gatling guns. That's scary. So we actually came up with that. And then the sniper rifle down below looks like a standard sniper rifle, but actually I give him credit because he actually drew this up, and he actually had the forethought of like, what would be something that's totally crazy, like with like the most mundane part of a sniper rifle, like the scope? Like, what if the scope was more of a camera and it focused the target onto a HoloLens? So you didn't actually need to be looking into the scope, but it projected an image so you would still have peripheral vision of your surroundings. So the infamous camping sniper that could get backstabbed by a knife, that'd be a lot harder to do. So that was his angle. And then the last two, if you're a fan of Outlaw Star, you know exactly what those are. So I'll give you 3 seconds to go into your memory bank to figure that one out. It was basically a handgun and a sniper rifle, which is a crazy thought for a caster gun. Because caster guns in Outlaw Star were really ridiculously powerful, and now you have a sniper rifle version of it. Yeah. Again, these are just crazy ideas from way back when. And then another one that came up, this is actually a really mundane page, but it was just like what we were looking forward to in the next game, and this was just like a little checklist we came up with, what we thought was possible, you know, give or take, and what we would really want, but, you know, who knows. Fan art, not so much game fan art, but just stuff I did. This image had bracket text, you know, you're a kid, you come up with your own secret codes. So that was the secret code for PDM Grim Reaper, which was my name way back in the day before Dredscythe. As well as, this is a advanced version of what I would draw on, you know, 1, 3, 5 subject notebooks back in the day. It was either something like this or a tropical island with a palm tree on it. Always one of the two. And all those unique textures and colorings over there, and for the guns were all from, I think, Corel something 3 back in the day. It's like, ooh, fancy stuff like that, old pre-built in stuff. And then this last image was actually from a story I was writing during high school that was part creative fit, part coping mechanism with all the crap that was happening back then. And it was like 100+ page single space. I'm not lying to you. 100-page single space Korean new font. Let that send shivers down your spine. Book that I had written, you know, typical fantasy and space, aliens, whatever, destruction of Earth, you know, all kind of fun stuff. And this was when I was playing StarCraft, because if you haven't noticed it by now, that kind of looks like a Nexus, right? You'll see it. You won't be able to forget about it. I haven't. So we move on to the wallpaper section, which, boys be boys. Now, in my defense, because God knows I'm showing you I need one. Again, oof. Speaking of Korean new, look at that navigation bar, broken images and everything. All of these images you see here are all the same lady who played Perfect Dark in the commercials. And by commercials, like, yes, these images were all from the commercial. Look up Perfect Dark TV commercial. Your jaw will drop in awe that this somehow was related to Nintendo as a basically a second party exclusive title for Nintendo that they basically said, yeah, sure, fine, yeah, that's perfectly legitimate. You know, coming from like a company that allowed Blizzard to say hell for Diablo, it's like, yeah, that sexually suggestive. Yeah. So we're gonna move on from there. Again, was this not the age of the Matrix, you know, that Matrix code look back then, where, you know, information page where, you know, just briefly describe the game and everything, you know, notice how like the font changes. Dear God, website making back then was a horror show. We get over to our bios, and this is something I'm actually going to touch on in the multiplayer, when I'm talking more about the love for the game rather than, you know, the website and like how that was first foray into website making, community building, was you were able to mix and match body and heads for your player profile that you were actually able to save back then. And so I picked the biggest body and the biggest head, Like, wait, Dread, does it make you the biggest target? I'm like, yes it does. There's also some meta involved in that was learned. So, you know, you have my God. It's like when you look back at anything you did like a year ago, let alone 10, let alone 20 years ago, you go, oh jeez, you just want to like, you just want to facepalm every 3 seconds. But it's like, nah, it is what it is. So it's like, you know, the site names, our first name, our current it says title, but really it's like multiplayer rank at that time, you know, our brief descriptions. And then we go over to the link section. I remember how it said over here, like links and all kind of fun stuff. You know, have a links page where you had all the banners and how that was the shit back then. Good times indeed. Now, when we're gonna start talking about like the different modes, this one is talk about like just how much I love this fucking game, because it had so much stuff packed into it that I think most modern games don't live up to it. As far as like features, abilities, things you could just do. And if you just took like the features set and you compared it to the feature set of a different game, like even modern day first person shooters, like they would fail miserably because they just don't offer this much, because they just hyper focus around multiplayer, hyper focus around a campaign, or try to do a balance of both, but they don't really go the extra mile. And there was more stuff planned for this game, but they ran into basically technological limits, because this is N64, so the amount of memory, the processing power, you needed the expansion pack to play all the things of this game, you know, when it went from 2 to 4 megabytes of RAM. God, how far we've come. So the modes in Perfect Dark, you had your traditional campaign, you had cooperative, which, you know, is exactly what you think it is. It's you and a friend play as basically 2 agents from the Character Institute, which were the good guys in the game, and you just did the campaign, except there were just 2 of you. So one person, if both of you were really good, one person could go do one objective of the mission, while the other one did another, as long as like one didn't have to be done before the other one, like, you know, checkpoint type deals. And then there was the complete opposite, which was counter-operative mode, which isn't even really done in most games that you could put this in, because, well, multiplayer is multiplayer, we just put it there. But you would basically, you and your friend would play through the campaign, you know, same thing, same objectives and everything, except one person would play as Joanna, the good guy, and then the other person, quite like Agent Smith in The Matrix, that player would just take over a random guard, soldier, lab tech, and would have basically any gun or instrument that they had at the time. So you could go into a guard that had a chimp cell, was what we called it. I think it was called a CMP 150. So it was automatic gun, or you can go to a lab tech that may only have a tranquilizer, which was still just as deadly with its secondary mode. Oh yeah, guns has secondary modes, every single one of them. And the point was the counter operative would just kill the good guy, kill Joanna, and then Joanna, whoever's playing her, had to go around do the objectives, and there's this constant tug of war, and it would always be hilarious when the person playing Joanna would actually kill the bad guy, because they also, whenever you zoomed into a body, like the health got like chucked down to like a third, so it only took 1 or 2 bullets to kill you. But you would, if the person playing the bad guy, when they would die, they would be able to respawn into another bad guy that would just happen to be the closest to Joanna. So it was just like if Neo kills an agent and then the agent just takes over like the janitor or the bus driver in the movie. It just kept on happening until either the good guy died or accomplished all the objective missions. So it was a very hilarious mode, because it was like multiplayer but not. It was just a different way of playing the game. And then something that was also very unique to this game, because I don't think I've really seen anything that comes to mind, was in most games, past and present, in fact, almost all of them. When you boot up the game, okay, you boot up the game, you go to your load save, you select, okay, multiplayer, you do all your options, and then you load in. Or you say, okay, I'm going to load up the campaign file where I last left off, start the campaign, that's where you go. In Perfect Dark, you could just have the menu where it said campaign, co-op, counter-op, multiplayer. You could just exit out of that, and you were in the Carrington Institute, where the good guy's base, and you could just walk around freely. You were technically already in a mode at that point, so you could walk around. There were NPCs in different labs, and there was independent things you could do that weren't linked directly to multiplayer or counter-op or co-op or the campaign. You could go up to one of the lab tech rooms, and you could do like little mini training missions with all the gadgets, so you actually so you could get advanced knowledge of how all the gadgets worked. So when you needed to use them in game, you weren't kind of learning on the fly. You actually understood how they worked. Or there was like a mini mode in like basically their version of like a hologram room, where it's called Duel, where you were loaded into different situations where it was basically one-shot kills, different scenarios where you would load up and you would fight off against different NPCs with different weapons, and it just made you a better... It got your trigger responses trained. And then last but definitely not least, this was the mode that we played probably the most, was the firing range. Every gun in the game, there were dozens, and some of them were actually ported over from GoldenEye, because again, Perfect Dark was kind of a weird spiritual successor to GoldenEye. Fun fact, random fun fact in the middle: Perfect Dark was actually the direct sequel to GoldenEye, but since Rare lost the bid to do it, since they had so much of the game built, quote unquote, they just retooled the assets, the story, and the characters, and they just built this game out of the remnants. So, fun fact for you. Yeah. So you had all the guns in the game at your disposal, and you would actually trade them. They had a bronze, silver, gold medal that you achievements that you could do, challenges for every gun, and they were all uniquely different, and they did get harder as you went from bronze to silver to gold. Like your accuracy or your timing or your precision, or everything, or a combination of all three were required. And it was just something fun to do. Like, okay, could I do one of these challenges? Okay, could my friend do it? It was just something else to do that wasn't the main story, or just, endless amounts of death matches. But so those are different modes. So we talked about different modes. We talked about what you could do just closing out the menu with Carrington Institute. But a whole nother thing was the combat simulator. Combat simulator was basically what Perfect Dark called multiplayer, and it by itself had a lot of crap. It had challenges that you could do solo 2, 3, and 4 player. And there was I forget how many. Let's see. Nope. Is it gonna do it? Nope. It is. No, I don't want to edit it because I don't know the information. But I think I want to say there was 30, but there may have been more. I don't remember, but there was a substantial amount of those challenges, and each one of those were different. The different scenarios that you could do, like combat your basic deathmatch, hold the briefcase. There would be a briefcase that was randomly in the map, and you had to go get it, and then you had to start running away, and then the longer you held, the more points you got, and that was the way you won. Hacker Central we didn't play too much of it, but we liked it. It was basically, there would be a computer terminal randomly in the map, and then you would have to get to it, use the data uplink, which is basically the hacking tool, and then hack into it, and then you got points. And then I think the computer terminal would disappear and spawn somewhere else to keep the flow of, you never know where it's going to be. So it breaks up the monotony of like, oh, it's in this one easily defendable spot. You're never going to get to me. That kind of stuff. Pop a Cap was essentially the game saying, all right, duck, 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 goose, you are now the target. Everyone else has to go find you and kill you. And that's how that was played. King of the Hill, certain spots in every map would glow. I think they initially glowed a green color, and then when you went into it, it would change color representing you, and then you would have to hold it for a certain amount of time, and then you got a point. And then, that the score was based around that. And then Capture the Case was basically Perfect Dark's version of Capture the Flag. There would be 2 teams, at least, because you could have multiple teams. It wasn't just 2. You would basically center capture the flag. You would go out to the other team's briefcase that would usually be defended, go try to capture it and bring it back to your case to turn it in for a point. And usual standard stuff applies that if you captured their briefcase but your briefcase was also stolen, one team or the other had to get theirs back and returned. I think you just ran over it and it returned automatically. Could be wrong. It's been a long time. And then if the person with the enemy team's briefcase could then go back to their own briefcase, turn it in, yada yada. There were many maps. Many of them were some of them were based on the campaigns, but most of them were specially designed for multiplayer. Out of all of those, which are these top ones, not the last 3, the Ravine probably we played the most, and it's just this giant freaking map. So there's a lot of places to run, but you still couldn't really hide because any of the long passageways went between one spot or another. So it was still easy enough to kind of entrap somebody. So it was fun, and especially on the Ravine, there was a standard issued rocket launcher, and then there was the Slayer. And for those who remember what the Slayer was, it was probably one of the most fun weapons ever. It was a rocket launcher, so we're already starting out with a bang. But its secondary mode, because like I said, every gun in this game has a secondary mode. It was fly-by-wire rocket. So you would launch it, and then you would go from being your character holding the weapon, firing the missile, to becoming the missile. And you could slow down the missile, you could speed it up, you can turn the missile any which way. And if you got good enough, like I did, most of the time, you could fly through all the narrow passageways, you could accelerate, decelerate enough, and actually guide yourself through all the corridors. So people really couldn't hide from the rocket, because most of the time people thought, oh, it's a rocket, it's just gonna go straight, they can't chase me, they can't, like, no, if you get good enough, it becomes a heat-seeking missile of death and destruction. And to top it all off is you could remote detonate the missile, so you didn't have to slam it into a wall or actually hit the person. If you just got close enough, you could just detonate it remotely, and you probably killed the person because, blast radius. So again, it was a fun little weapon. So the Ravine was probably a fun Perfect Dark maps in the multiplayer that were given, but probably the complex was probably my friend Kevin's and mine's total favorite. Felicity, like I said, FE should be A, but again, copyright laws, was a second, and Temple was a big map, but it was just annoying. It was just like, it was like meant to confuse you. It was like, no. And then we get to the simulants, which was a whole nother deal. It's like you could have 4 human players and 8 simulants, basically AI bots. So that's 12 people per se in any multiplayer map. That's huge. That was like most low-level Counter-Strike servers back in the day. And it really made you feel like you were playing against a lot of people, and that the game, that like you had to be always be on your toes. And even more so, again, this game has so many fucking features. If you had like say like it was you and 3 friends, and you split up, and it was two people on each team. So you and a friend on one team, and then 2 of the other friends on another team. You could put in 8 simulants and split them up. So you could have 4 on your side, 4 on their side. So it could be a 6v6. But at the same time, you could also give them orders. So you can give them attack orders, so they would actually go out, seek, and attack the other simulants and players. You could order them to follow you. So if you got in a tight spot, there's usually a simulant behind you to back you up, protect you. So now it was similar, but like now they're really going to defend you or hold. So if you were good enough, you could put simulants in particular areas that were blind spots. So as soon as someone was coming around a corner, they just start getting lit up by a bot. So it's just hilarious. And you were able to go in between the bots individually, if I remember correctly. It wasn't just a per. It wasn't like the whole lot. You could actually go per. Again, this game has so much crap. And then we get into the specialties. Now you had your skill-based ones. Now you meet easy, normal sims were the easy one. Hard sims, they started gaining some level of competence. I think like Super Smash Brothers, like the AI levels, you start at 1, 2, 3, like really simple. But when you start getting like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like they started exhibiting certain behaviors, or they did certain things more compared to others. So perfect sims were scary. Dark sims were like, even I didn't touch those, because dark sims were, the game is basically just cheating on you. Like it always got a headshot, always hit on like the first like shot, unless you knew exactly what to do to avoid it, and you'd always die. Again, the game be cheating. And then you had your specialty sims. So you had Kaiju sims, they wouldn't mind killing themselves. Coward sims always run away. Peace sims didn't do much. Venge sims, if you killed it, it was not going to kill you. So it would always be interesting if you had a whole bunch of those, and your friend would go around killing them all, and you would just be like, okay, I don't have to worry about the simulants for a while, because they're not going to come after me. They're just going to go after my friend. This is going to be fun. And then, as I said before, if I go back to, can I find it? Yeah. Remember how I said this was a Mayan? This was a Mayan head on a Mr. Blondie body. Now, for those who don't remember, the Mr. Blondie body was actually the holographic projection disguise for the Skedar, which were the Mayans' enemies. And the Mayans were like your typical, stereotypical Area 51, 3.5 foot, big gray head, big dark eye aliens. So you were able to mix and match and save those to your user profile, because like I said before, you're able to save 4 user profiles. You're able to save an appearance per that user profile as well. Again, advancements, all this fun stuff that this game had that doesn't really get replicated all that much. On top of music, you're able to select any soundtrack from the game for the music for the multiplayer match. You're able, as well as you're able to save entire weapon setups. You're able to save like what map you were playing, handicaps, teams, bots, anything and everything. Like the music too, you're able to save all those, and you're able to save up to 4 of those presets as well. And there's like so much like stuff you're able to do. I just don't want to forget about it. I'll get into you were able to rank up starting from beginner 21 all the way to perfect 1, which was a real grind. Not even Paragon, old-fashioned Paragon 100 compares to this. I'm blanking on something. Like there's something like I want to say, but I'm blanking. Something's gonna go on. Yeah. Okay. So as I mentioned, these were the ranks. You started at beginner 21, and then if you ever got there, it would be 1 perfect. And just to give an idea of, this was someone who took 19 years, only a short time. Granted, no, it didn't. This is not like one of those like weird like generational Iron Man challenges to get there. I think it probably took me closer to 1 year and 3/4 to 2 years to get my perfect one, and that's from someone who actually absolutely loved this game and played a lot. And these were the stats that you were able to save on your user profile. So, you know, your KD ratio, all that kind of fun stuff, your overall accuracy. Don't suck in the beginning, or your accuracy will never be the same. All the medals that you've gotten, the games played, games won, games lost, all kind of fun stuff. And then finally your title. And then they actually had, this wasn't just an Easter egg. This username and password worked on both the false Keratin Institute and Datadyne websites back in the day, and it was just another like level of stuff, fluff for the game. Love that was put in the games back then. So again, this is a website, and these were, of all the stats, these were the 10 that actually mattered. And the way that it worked was each one of these amounts were split by into 10 equal brackets. So games won 900, each 90 counted as a point. So there's 100 points here, and every time you got 5, you ranked up, because there was like a weird, I don't know, from beginner 21 to there, that's how it just worked. So every time you got 5 points, so it didn't have to be equal. So you can get a lot of medals, and that could get you up pretty quickly. But some other things just took forever. Like kills took forever. The time and the distance was probably ultimately what stopped a lot of people from getting perfect one, because the distance meant that you couldn't just camp. I mean, you had to run your ass off every multiplayer match to do it. And time, like 12.5 days doesn't sound like that much, but for like a basic console shooter, that's a lot. Because even if you're playing 4 hours, that's 6, so you're taking 12, you're timesing that by 6, so that's a solid, what, almost 2.5 months every day playing for 4 hours. That's nuts. Back in those days. And this is a more clean, albeit smaller, I can't click on this screenshot of what the stat screen looked like for your user. And then, yeah, this website has like what their fire range looked like. I wonder if you click on, is that, yeah, so it actually was targets, and you actually got points based on where you shot. So if you missed it, you got 0 points. If you got in the blue, I think you got 2. If you got the orange, you got 5. If you got the bullseye, you got 10. And that was critical. Like for most of the point-based, they called it score, but it was really points based on where you shot. It was critical that you actually really had good aim. So again, like the firing range was like really, really, was really, really critical. Sorry, just looking at all these, going like, which weapons I like to play a lot, which weapons like I will never attempt them in training mode again. Because my friend and I, we got gold for all the weapons eventually. Some of them were easy, some of them were just royal pain. And then when some of them, like, you had to be like almost lucky to get them. And I couldn't imagine trying to do some of them right now. A favorite thing we actually like to do with the, I think, yeah, it was the regular Falcon, was on gold, trying to get the 180 points, I think it was. 170? Yeah, okay. Trying to get the 170 goal score in under 5 seconds, which is almost impossible. You have to really know. You have to have really good trigger action, and also you have to like be like dead on with the reload. I think I have a picture on my phone of where I did it like sometime last year, where I got like a 4.93 like time. But it was like simple shit like this. Like that's not even part of the standard game. Is what made it so good. And it's like I can go on and just like how much fun we had. I mean, not unlike how much fun I had in GoldenEye or I'm talking about Super Smash Brothers or Mario Kart. It's like that's just what console gaming was back then. It was just good, honest fun. Developers put a lot of time and effort and content in those games, so you had something to do. There's always something to do. There's always something to look forward to do. And even once you did everything, you just do it all again. You just pick another save slot, you do it all again, and you got that feeling once again. Except you more or less knew where you were going or the tricks, but you can still do it. Especially in a game that had co-op and counter-op, some more avenues of play were there. And then, last but not least, like I said, I forgot if I even mentioned this, because the first video was silent because I had the mic muted, is I have a relic of an index book that is copyrighted 1996. So that's 24 years ago when I got this thing. And this was a book that I kept track of every time we ranked up. And it wasn't just for myself and my friend Kevin. It was for like our how we all had like a group of friends who play consoles together. You know, you go over their house, they come over your house, or you know, someone brings their console over, whatever. That's what we did. So in the top cover, somehow even though it's going to be all mirrored and backwards, all those early sketches that I did, and you know, the first entry was myself. When was that? That was Special Agent 13, so it was the lower teens, which wasn't hard to get to. So that was May 24th, so basically the end of May 2001. And then, you know, just going through, you know, as more friends came in, you know, kept track of their progress, kept track of my progress, going through, doing little charts of our progress, and like all the things that we just did back then because we had time and we cared. You know, whenever we did like a name change, there's like a thing that says like Player Lex is now Luxurious, and going through and all the fun stuff. In fact, I want to see if I can find one particular sketch, because I have no idea why I did it. Yeah, the one sketch I found in here is subtitled Universal Power, and it's actually a Stargate, if I'm not mistaken. And for anyone who's born of that era, you know what that S is. You know what that S is. Yeah. After 24 years, these little sketches are still there. They're not blurred things of graphite by this point. So, you know, just finally going through, and then finally, at the end, 6:30 p.m., August 15th, 2002, is when I finally reached the last rank of Perfect 1. And again, I'm sorry, it's backwards. Could have maybe done something with the camera and the mirror, but it's not important that you see how well I played, because I was the best out of the local group. Again, my friend Kevin was second best, and everyone else was, "You're cheating. You're looking at our screens." Which, if we can have a segue on just that thing alone, in past first-person shooters like GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, like the whole, like, you know, the split screen view with, if you're playing with like 2 or 3 or 4 players in a first-person shooter. If I'm screen looking and I can kill you, and I can figure out where you are because I know the map and I've memorized it and I know gun placements and everything. That's not cheating. That's just me being better than you. And I'm not saying that to be facetious or you know, brown nosing or whatever the term may be. It's just that it's like I want to say, like, I want to use like a term from like modern era for back then. It's like, get good. Because that was always the thing, because that was the reason why we tended to play certain maps, is because not because we memorized them, but because we were actually able to play better on them. We were, my friend, especially my friend Kevin and myself, we were able to better almost like outplay each other, because we were able to on the fly understand, okay, he's in the ramp room and I'm in the penthouse, so I need to get the hell out of this spot before he gets to me, which he could be here literally in 3 seconds and kill me, so I need to get out of dodge. And I know those phrases don't really mean much to you, but that was because since we played those maps enough, him and I came up with basically code names for certain areas of usually just the complex, because we loved that map so much, and we also played King of the Hill on that one so much. We had to figure out quick, easy ways of relaying when one of us figured out where the new hill spot was, to relay that to the other person, and that's where those phrases, those location names came from. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't get proper images of those locations. Otherwise, I would actually go into the phrases and actually say what those of those particular locations, because it actually made sense. But unfortunately not. So only him and myself will understand for now. Maybe in another video. Who knows? But yeah. So again, screen looking, not a bad thing. It just means you need to get better. But yeah. So yeah, it's like I just felt like I, especially finding this notebook, and there's actually another 5-star, because again, 5-star, you always had to have a 5-star notebook, you know, not those 10-cent cheapo composite one subject notebooks. Yeah, the 5-star. Your parents had to spend $1.29 on those shits. Yeah, imagine that. God. Anyways, so I've gone on long enough. I just wanted to profess my love of this game, and you know, just say how good it was for its time, and how I think underrated most people give it, because it came out after GoldenEye, which everyone rightfully loves, and I love too, and I played the crap out of that game as well before getting this. And right as this game was coming out, either right as or right after, Halo came out. So Halo and the modern age of first-person shooters started on consoles, apparently right there. So this game was kind of suckered in between, and I don't think it got the recognition that it really rightfully deserved, just with the amount of modes and options and things you could actually save and actually continue on to rank up. But yeah, so you know, just a little quick final look through all the pages once again. Again, Nintendo certified. Again, man. It's still a trip to look at all this stuff again, because like, games gone by. So I hope you enjoyed this weird winding path of my love for this game, and show you what got me into this whole community fan site business, because I know I talk at length about Diablo because that's what most people know me for, but there's a whole 10 years prior to that where it was mainly Perfect Dark and this website. And yeah, so I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time on the next vlog.